Okay, we are live for episode 216 of Trek Live. How you doing this morning, Dan?
Doing great. I'm excited to talk about some Star Trek and finish off TOS with a bang, and it should be fun.
Yeah, it's always a big deal to finish a show. I feel like we pretty successfully stayed aligned through all of TOS, which is pretty cool. So that we could do this, that we could within a reasonable amount of time, you know, both finish it, talk about it together as completed products, and take a look at our rankings and how we feel about the shows as a whole. Um, I think it's been fun to kind of emphasize that more in our shows over the last couple of months, to really, take advantage of the fact that we're watching the same thing, and that we're pretty close in terms of, what we're watching and when. So, yeah, should be fun to really dive into TOS, take a look at things like our, do our top tens match. I haven't spent a whole lot of time looking at detail. I've seen your list, but I haven't you know, read it yet. Um, Looking at where the big differences might be and kind of hone in on those things. So, just as a real quick before we get into any of that, I have my spreadsheet that I use to track all this stuff that I'm eventually here going to put on the screen with us a little smaller in the corner, so that I can show things like Dan's ranks, my ranks. I have some other things to show as well. I have my grades from 3.0 next to 4.0 to see where changes happened. Uh, what I
Nice.
ranked where in 3.0 compared to 4.0 to see what were like the high risers and the low fallers. So we'll take a look at that since I have that data. But like I said, we'll also compare each other's a little bit. But before we get into that, nitty gritty of the details, what were your overall impressions now that you're done the show? You finished season three. Thoughts on season three, since we haven't really talked about that yet. Broad stroke, kind of big picture thoughts on season three and the show as a whole now that it's done.
I think anytime that I finish TOS, I always come back to the thought that TOS season 3 isn't all that bad. There are definitely some stinkers. There are definitely some middle of the road stuff. But I think there are some really good underrated episodes in season
Mm-hmm.
3. But I mean, it is also a little bit bittersweet to end the show because I don't think it ends very strongly, and I think that definitely puts a lot of bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, definitely including me. And I think there are some shows, not just DOS, that end like that. It's always difficult to end a show, but for me, it's always the realization of it's not that bad, but it's also there are some definitely low spots in season 3.
Yeah, one of the things I did notice because I had to put some stuff together from the ranks you sent me is like that last quarter of episodes. The way that I have the ranks kind of displayed is the show in quarters. So for TOSs, it's like at groups of 20 next to each other, and that what would that be 60 through 79? That last batch is there's a decent number of season three episodes in there, and I think that's pretty status quo.
Yeah,
That's not surprising. Um, your bottom 10, I think, is pretty not full of season three, but I'm guessing it's probably maybe 5 or 6 of the 10, maybe 7 of the 10 might come from season three. Uh,
and it's tough because like I was messing with the lights of Zetar last night, and it's hard to find a spot for that because they're in a lot of these episodes. It's like using the lights of Zetar as an
mhm,
example. There's things in it that I
yeah.
like, and it's hard to try to find a home for it in my ranking, just because, like in every Star Trek episode, there is something that I can find. At least the majority of episodes, I can find something that I like in them.
Yeah, I agree with that. It can be hard to. Yeah, because like in my mind, I usually try to resist being like a nitpicker. I don't want to be somebody who picks apart in every detail and gets like really hoity-toity about what goes where, and like I want it to be more of like an instinctual kind of reaction, and like let my personal preferences kind of drive it, as opposed to poking things apart. But with like the Lights of Zetar, for example, I totally agree. Like there are things with Scotty's relationship with the lieutenant Remain that I don't think work very well, haven't aged well, don't reflect Scotty's character well. But I think some of the horror elements are cool. I think that the sound effect that they create when the Zetarians are possessing a person is scary. Like actually holds up pretty well. I think some of the stuff, like they introduced Memory Alpha in that episode, which is obviously a big deal in like the minds of Star Trek fans today. Like that's like in our, that's become like a one-off reference from TOS is something that we use all the time. And they're like good scenes spread, and that's like the story of Star Trek, right? If you're a fan of it, even the worst episodes, you can find like a little scene here and there that kind of finds the magic sauce because you're with characters that you like, and then you're in a setting that you're happy to be in. Like there are moments that work. So yeah, I tend to agree. I think we have talked, I guess, a little bit about season 3 over the last couple of episodes, just in small bits. But I know I've mentioned the obvious production limitations I think show in season 3. Some I definitely miss the humor, the lighter touch that I think becomes kind of part of the show's personality, and the kind of chunky middle of the show. It's late season 1, big chunk of season 2. But I think season 3 does offer characters like McCoy some good things to do. He's very heavy in episodes like Tholian Web and All Our Yesterdays, and For the World is Hollow. Like, he's got big things to do. Scotty has big things to do. He's pretty involved in a lot of the episodes, and sometimes to great effect. I think in an episode that I'm not like a huge fan of, That Which Survives, I think it's kind of just an okay episode, but I think Scotty's really cool in it and gets a lot of interesting things to do. And I think a lot of the kind of hallmark traits of his character that have become like what Scotty is known for are featured in that episode. Where in, like I just said, Lights of Zetar, I think he's a little less successfully featured, but at least he's featured. Like, he's part of the action. He's doing stuff, and he's on missions, and I think there's a little more diversity in terms of like how the characters are used throughout the season. So yeah, we have Cyber Honey in the chat saying hello. How you doing? Welcome. Happy to hear your thoughts on TOS as a whole as we kind of move forward in our conversation here. Yeah. Well, any other thoughts on season 3, kind of more broadly, before we get into the?
I don't think so. Definitely enjoyed parts of it, and then definitely didn't enjoy some parts of it. But I think it's going to make for an interesting conversation when it comes to ranks, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so let's do this thing. We're going to go to our little spreadsheet here, and again, I've talked about this before. You can access this as like a OneDrive document if you have access to Microsoft Office in any capacity, on your phone, on your computer. If you click the link on my Twitter profile, you can get this as a read-only document with all these tabs, accessible. But I think I kind of want to start with Dan's ranks here. Throw them up on the screen and take a look, and just to kind of confirm what I was thinking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of your 10 at the bottom 10 are season 3. You got Spock's Brain, Alana Troyes, Plato's Stepchildren, The Way to Eden, Turnabout Intruder, and then The Children Shall Lead. So just kind of like tie that up. I think that's pretty par for the course. But
yeah, and like as I was saying, some of the tough ones were Lights of Zetar, where I it's hard to, because I like that she's the new crewman is kind of green, and she's kind of working through kind of the first time in space, but it's definitely some of Scotty's relationship kind of brings that down. But yeah, definitely that latter half is pretty tough in my opinion. But at the same time, it's like I don't want to be too down because even in Plato's Stepchildren, there's things that I might like. With Alexander and his he doesn't want to be like them, and he chooses. Just I don't know. There's things in some of these episodes, maybe not the bottom four, I'd say, but definitely some of these episodes have some okay stuff. So I would definitely recommend watching them even now.
And I know you've talked about this, when we started our rewatch, you mentioned kind of what goes into this and how you decide what's ahead of what. But kind of touch on, if you can, like what your thought process is when you're stacking these episodes. Like what puts...
Yeah, because if you look on Twitter, I said that the Cloud Minders were one of my favorite TOS episodes, or maybe season 3. If you actually look at it, I think the Enterprise incident is ranked higher. So some of these rankings are coming off being a little bit more cool and level-headed with some of these picks. And I think it's a difficult balance, again, is what I said, to kind of round off of the Enterprise incident and the Cloud Minders. If we're talking strictly season 3, just as an example, but there are dozens of examples in my rankings. But sometimes my favorite aren't always the best, and it's a hard kind of balance to try to find where they actually do belong and the ones that are actually good. So it's definitely a struggle. Some of these again, these rankings are just right now. I think I'll definitely come around on a few of these episodes. Definitely got a lot of not flack, but just conversation on Twitter about having some of these episodes a little lower than most people. A Piece of the Action being one of those examples. But again, I guess just to kind of round off the discussion of just as my first time ranking a whole series, is it's still a struggle to try to find that balance of favorite and is this actually the best episode of the series, and how that kind of falls with all these episodes. So definitely work in progress still, but I feel like it's fun to try to have that balance of really logical best of the best and favorites, and those don't always line up, so it's always fun to kind of see those episodes.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we come back to a lot in our conversations, like trying to differentiate between best and favorite, and I think that's an important distinction to make with trying to rank. It's something I definitely grapple with too. Rewatchability kind of goes along with favorite. I think best, sometimes you can get into stuff that's heavy and difficult, but really strong, undeniably effective, but something you might not find yourself wanting to go back to as often. And how do you reconcile those two things? Doing this is kind of every person's different. Different people are going to emphasize different things, and I think that's obviously natural. And I like that you try to put a big emphasis on the rewatchability, as you've kind of talked about as you've started doing this, that you were going to let that drive a lot of what you were doing. Picking, if you're going to be, I think you've used the desert island kind of metaphor. If you're stuck somewhere and can only take a certain number of episodes, which ones would you want to watch for the rest of your life? I know that's a big thing for Trek Ranks. Jim over there does that. It uses that as a pretty big guiding light too.
But I think if you're doing this for the first time, I think that definitely helps. I think if you're not doing that, maybe look at Bill's type of GPA type of system. But I feel like you do have to have something like that, because I think it's definitely easy to get lost with all these episodes, and it's a short series. So I'm excited to see how these change with the longer shows.
It gets harder, that's for sure. That's one of the differences you'll see with Dan's and mine is I use, like you said, you just mentioned GPA. Like I put a grade on the episode, and that's kind of where I am led. That's what I'm led by with mine. If I give an episode a B plus, it goes into a population of episodes that also got a B plus, and that allows me to kind of stack within that group. That's my first kind of instinct is what letter grade do I give it, and then from there I can kind of decide where it fits in the overall stack of episodes with that same grade, and that's what allows me to do, which you're not going to do, which I don't blame you for, because doing it on is a big thing.
Yes.
Well, yeah, like just doing TA, yeah, something like that. But even doing all the shows in one stack is I think the only way that can. I mean, anybody can do it any way they want, but the only way I can do that is to use the letter grade system so that I can try to figure out, like, okay, if just pulling a random episode here, like I gave the empath a B, which it looks like you probably are right around the same notion. We're pretty close on that one. If the empath is a B, I'm going to need to compare that B to a B from Deep Space Nine and like shorten the list of episodes that I'm trying to compare it to try to figure out where it goes, as opposed to looking at the whole grand scheme of it to slot it. So all kinds of ways to do this. But I think it's really cool that you're starting off by looking at one show at a time, letting your instinct for rewatchability and your favorite episodes to kind of guide that kind of first attempt to do this. And then if you're going to keep on keeping on with it, you introduce different criteria and more nuance as you go to try to hone it. I think that's a cool way to do it. And this, to me, like the cool thing about this is just because we talk a lot, and we've talked a lot over the years about TOS and Star Trek in general, is as somebody who knows you pretty well, I feel like what you have here makes sense. Like there's nothing here that like surprises me in terms of, especially because I know it's driven by like what your favorites are and what's rewatchable. I'm not surprised that, after all the conversations we've had, that a piece of the action's a little further down, and that Mirror Mirror is not in your top 10, and it's a little further down, and something like
the Deadly Years.
The Deadly Years you've talked about really liking, like things you've talked about over the last several months, and even going back further than that, are accurately kind of reflected here. And it's not a huge numerical difference, but the fact that you have Spock's brain at 72 and not like 77, 78, or 79, I think makes sense. Like that, knowing you the way that I know you, that reflects.
That's, yeah. A lot of it has to do with what we do with Trek After Dark, and then just the ridiculousness kind of is more of a positive now. Yeah, it's just sometimes episodes flip like that.
Sure. Yeah. And to me, when I think about, for you, if you're driving it a lot by favorite rewatchability, it's no surprise that something like Mud's Women, Miri, Tournament Intruder, Plaintiff's Stepchildren are way down there, because they're not, they're clearly not the episodes that I imagine you deciding on a Friday night to throw on to kind of relax to.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like scrolling through it, looking for what looks like an obvious difference, and I'll quick pop over to mine just to kind of have a comparison. This is me over here, and as you can see on mine, you have the episode grades next to the episodes, and like I said, that kind of is my key to stacking them as I go. But it looks like the biggest difference might be, I wrote down the Deadly Years, which is a 46-point difference. You have it at 20. I have it at 66. So that's a pretty big one, and probably is the biggest. I have a piece of the action at 20. You have it at 58. So that's 38. And then Requiem for Methuselah is one that we haven't really talked about. That's also a pretty big one. I have it at 28, and you have it at 64. All the way down here in your bottom fourth in your last quarter. So that's a That's a 36-point difference, and a pretty big one too.
What do I have Wink of an Eye at?
You have Wink of an Eye at 48. I have it at 62.
62.
So that's a moderate. Like that's sizable. Like we're outside of the same quarter. Um, a big optic one. The number difference isn't huge here, but I have Mirror Mirror at 8. You have it at 22. Like just in terms of like
Yeah.
top 10 outside of the top 20 is a
So there's definitely some episodes that are different, I guess.
yeah. We have 9 of the 10 in our top 10 lineup. I have Mirror Mirror at 8. You have it at 22. You have Journey to Babel all the way up at 6. I have that at 11. So Journey to Babel and Mirror Mirror are different top 10 appearances. And then when you get into the 12, you have This Side of Paradise at 12. I have it at 18. So not a huge difference there, but if you're talking like up in that elite stratosphere of episodes.
Episodes, yeah.
My bottom 5, I have Wolf in the Fold, Cat's Paw, Alternative Factor, Spock's Brain, and The Children Shall Lead. And I want to say, yeah, and The Children Shall Lead is the only common in that bottom 5. So
Yeah.
interesting little
Yeah.
little note there.
Yeah.
Anything else stand out as like a huge difference? I don't think so. I think we're pretty good. We're in the same ballpark a lot of the time. Like there's
Yeah.
not like this great giant difference. I think Deadly is definitely the biggest one with a 46-point swing.
Gamesters seems like a little bit lower on yours and a little bit higher on mine.
Yeah, you have it at 27. I have it at 57. So that's a 30-point. That's a pretty big one. That's a good eye. That's a good catch. Let's see. There's got to be another one somewhere in here. That's a pretty sizable. What do I have? I have Tomorrow's Yesterday at 27. I know you're not as big on that one. You have it at 53. So what's 53, 27? That's 26.
I'm not too warm on that.
Yeah, that's a.
Yeah, I mean there are some similarities, but definitely I think like the mushy middle type of episodes. I think that's where you can see the biggest swings, because I think that's like you said, that's when your personal preference comes out, and I think that's when it's the most fun to kind of look at these ranks when you see like a 27-point swing between these two episodes.
Yep, I totally agree. They're my favorite episodes to talk about. We've kind of touched on that over the last several episodes where we've touched on TOS. Those middle of the road kinds of episodes are really, that don't appear on top 10s or bottom 10s even, are where, I think you're going to see maybe not like ginormous, not quite as extreme as Deadly Years or Requiem for Methuselah, but you might get like 10, 12-point differences there. A lot of Troyish. You have at 73. I have at 58. It's moderate size. So yeah, really interesting stuff. I think, like you said, when we get into the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, just for the sheer number of episodes that those shows have, I think it's more likely to have a few more wide variations. Everything's pretty compact in the original series, and certainly in the new stuff where we're talking about shows that might only have 30 episodes in the case of Picard when it ends. With the shorter seasons, it's not going to get that wide. But you get into 178 episodes, 176 episodes, and you can start to see some pretty sizable differences. Yeah, I think we'll see a lot more there. I'll pop over here real quick. I have this grade and ranking changes little key here. Um, so once it pops over for you guys, you'll be able to see I have my letter grade uh, from the last rewatch and the current rewatch here with the change in numeric value that I can sort, and you could sort if you open this, like I said on the OneDrive document. And I also have where I ranked the episodes in 3.0 and 4.0. So if I go into the filter and say show me like big differences here, just to throw a few up on the screen right away, something that stands out is I guess the biggest change is who mourns for Adonais for me.
Yeah, I was just gonna say what that looks
It's a pretty big difference. Yeah, it dropped
pretty
10
big
spots.
swing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
went from a 3, a B, to a C plus, and dropped to 53
what
from
happened?
43. I don't know. That's another one that I think it's a better episode than The Lights of Zetar, but like we were just talking about at the beginning with the way Scotty interacts with the female crewman in Who Mourns for Adonais. This isn't really that different than the way he interacts with her in The Lights of Zetar, two different flames.
Yeah,
And, I think
when he falls
he
hard.
falls
I
hard
guess.
and
Yeah,
doesn't know how to
yeah. Talk to
no
women.
or balance his job with his crush. But I think
Yeah,
and that's definitely the thing that hurts that episode the most to me. I have a hard time with that. I like the guest performances in it. I think the actor who plays Apollo in a tough role to play like that Greek god, like really broad,
yeah. It's
tough
tough.
performance.
Yeah,
And even Palamas, the actress who plays her, is I think really strong in a tough role. So I don't think it's a miss, and I think it's a better episode than The Lights of Zetar, but I think it falls prey to some of the same things that, especially over time, I think have grown more difficult to deal with. Um, so another big -8 on Spectre of the Gun, which I haven't really looked deeply at this. I threw the data together, but didn't want to spend a lot of time really looking at it until we did this. That's a B plus down to a B, so not like a huge change in terms of like how I feel about it. I think it's a good episode, but
maybe just leveled
level
off.
off a little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
Same thing for Wink of an Eye. Looks like negative -7 spots.
yeah,
C plus down to a C. That's to me like it's just okay. Like I don't have any real strong feelings about it. I think
yeah,
it's a neat concept. I think it's an outside the box science fiction idea. But it falls prey to a lot of the same things that a lot of season 3 kind of stumbles on. I think the limited, means that the production had kind of limit what they can do, obviously, and I think there's some pacing issues in that one.
yeah. Because it takes place mostly on a ship, right?
On a ship that's pretty much empty. It's pretty much a lot of it's just Kirk
Yeah,
and the female
guest
guest
star.
star
Yeah,
who's trying to woo him.
yeah,
And there's some cool tangoing there. I do like their chemistry, and I think the way that they interact is interesting. They're both kind of trying to con each other for a lot of it, and I think it's okay. It's I don't dislike it, but I don't have it anywhere near my favorites. So I guess it just leveled off a little bit there.
yeah. Leveled off.
No,
But yeah,
nothing went up the same kind of extreme. Nothing had the same extreme jump up that
yeah.
Humorins had
Okay.
down. It looks like I think the highest rise looks like there's a couple sixes here with immunity syndrome, which I really enjoyed this time around. And that kind of makes sense. The Ultimate Computer went up 6 spots. That's kind of surprising to me that it could go up that much. It went up from 23 to 17. That's it's cool.
Maybe that's because the Lower Decks episode, maybe.
I don't know. I feel like I watched that before that. I think I watched the Ultimate Computer pretty fresh when the Lower Decks episode came out. So if anything, it helped the Lower Decks episode.
Okay.
But no, I just think I think it's a really strong episode, and I think the back half of season 2 also nowhere near to the extreme that season 3 suffers. But I think there's a lot of pretty good to okay stuff in like that last handful of episodes of season 2 for me, and maybe the Ultimate Computer being as strong as it does, as it is boosted a bit by kind of what episodes it falls
What
around.
it's around.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Even the Paradise Syndrome went up 6 spots as well, which is, again, it doesn't feel like it to me, which is, I guess 6 spots isn't that much. I guess that's maybe why it's large in the sense that nothing else went up that high. Yeah, C to C plus. It's not like a huge grade difference. The one that feels like a change, which makes sense, is Who Mourns for Ed and Ace, because it's a more sizable drop, not only in the -10, but the B to a C plus is like you can kind of feel that. That's
a letter grade
where I can feel it in my gut a little bit. It's not a B to a B or a B plus to a B kind of a change. It's something that's kind of really worth noting. So yeah, not a lot of huge changes, which makes sense to me because the show is not new to me, and it's harder for me to, I think, see a great deal of change. One thing I did notice that I think I somehow figured this out. My top 10 didn't change at all in terms of what episodes were where or what episodes were there. There was some moderate changing of like right here. There was something I just saw. I think it might have been the Corbin Might maneuver changed a little bit. Where's it at? Corbin Might went up, went down from 9 to 10, which means I swapped a little bit around the bottom of the top 10. But it's the same group of 10 episodes from 3.0 to 4.0. So not a lot of change.
What do you think causes those big swings and changes? Like Who Mourns? Like, is it more an episode leveling off, or is it more some of what the new stuff is doing and changing our perspective on episodes, or is it a combination of maybe both?
I think it's a combination. I definitely think there's something. I definitely expect that new stuff coming and shifting perspective on how some of the older stuff fits into the continuity and how important things from the older stuff ends up becoming. Would naturally shift some things around, probably even more subconsciously than something I would obviously notice. But I think I do try as hard as I can to, when I sit down to watch an episode, I try not to pay attention to what I gave it before, and try to let the new experience be a new experience and not be driven by trying to match the last grade and last relative rank placement to the new one. So it might just be a measure of how successfully I was able to like wipe the slate clean when I sat down and popped that episode on. But yeah, and certainly for something like the original series, I think as time goes on, I definitely have found that some episodes have gone up or down based on how the episode ages. Just like, I guess bottle of wine or something, like depending on how well it holds up over time with societal norms and the stuff that makes me, react one way or the other, that's naturally going to shift with time as well. Well, even though you didn't rank before, but did you, now that you're done, you don't have this to show yet because this is your first time ranking, but just on your kind of gut instinct, looking at popping up your ranks again, like, is there something there that you feel like was a kind of a radical shift or a bigger change than you expected did ranking cause any shifts in perspectives in terms of where you thought something might land compared to where it did?
Yeah, I think a PC action definitely
Lower than you thought it would be?
is lower than I thought it would be. But again, I try to fight with some of these. I try to fight myself with some and try, like you said, push away because there are rankings out there that are really easily accessible. The Discord server has a bunch of them. Jim at Trek Ranks has his website, so I try to push those away and try to be as authentic as I can because I don't want to sway the my rankings. And it's interesting too because I also have this question for you, Bill. Is like I sometimes the episode, how fast you're watching it and how many you watched, I think changes your perspective on that particular episodes. So I think I try to. You have a great rule to not land on not your next episode is a lower end tier episode. Not end on a bad episode or start on a bad.
Not leave and the children should not lead as your first episode to watch the next day or the next weekend or something. Yeah, I try not to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that can impact it too. If you fall, one of the things I try to consciously avoid too is I don't want to feel like I'm just taking my medicine by watching this. I want to feel like I'm watching it because I want to watch it. And if I'm doing it in large chunks, I'm not doing it because of an arbitrary deadline or just because I have to. If I'm rolling off a bunch of episodes at a time, it's hopefully because I got nothing else going on and that's what I feel like doing and I'm enjoying it.
And you want
and I want to be doing it. Yeah, and I'm enjoying it. Give or take. A variance in terms of how good the episode individually is, but I'm enjoying being in that headspace. So as long as I kind of stick to that and I'm in the right headspace watching it, I don't think that impacts me too much, other than the fact that I do think one thing that I probably can't avoid is if I do watch episodes in shorter sequence, I do think watching, trying to think of an example of this, but watching Cat's Paw right after the Doomsday Machine, as opposed to maybe watching Cat's Paw a week later, when it aired, that might cause a little bit more of a stronger reaction to Cat's Paw, or watching
the movies
in certain
4 to 5. That was
that'll do it. The Ultimate Computer, like I just said, I think is helped by the fact that it comes in a pool of episodes like the Omega Glory, Patterns of Force, stuff that's middle of the road or maybe a little below that in the Omega Glory's case.
Lower tier.
That can make an impact on me, I think, for sure. And that's, I don't know what else to do about that. I'm one thing I'm not going to do is try to replicate what it was like watching the episodes in the 60s and watch one a week. As cool as that would be to kind of experiment with letting one episode kind of sit.
That would take
a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't have the self-control to stick to that kind of a schedule, unfortunately. But so that's kind of just the nature of it and part of the experience at this point. But I do think it helps and hurts certain episodes. Yeah. Anything else kind of stand out with all this stuff? I did, since we're wrapping up TOS, I did do TAS. You couldn't stomach it and didn't do it, and I can't really blame you. You won out actually on that experience. That's one that I kind of did. I took my medicine and did it over the course of a couple of days. And these are definitely graded on a curve here. I think I mentioned on Twitter that it's on a curve, and Jim from Trek Ranks gave me a bunch of crap about what does that even mean, and I don't even know what it means. I just know that these are towards the bottom of my overall like regardless of the letter grade. These are graded against each other, not against these guys. So they're an anomaly, and I'm not a huge fan. I really struggle with it. I think with the animated series, my kind of overall takeaway for it is that some of the concepts are actually pretty strong, pretty cool, like science fiction ideas, especially for a younger audience. Episodes like One of Our Planets is Missing has some really neat ideas about, episodes about an anomaly approaching a planet with a colony on it and not a lot of time to react. And what do we do? Like, do we tell them that it's coming? Do we rescue the few people that we can rescue, like the kids, and leave the adults to die? Or do we just not say anything at all? Like, there's some big ideas in there. But the limitations of the animation itself, the very redundant music, the lack of variety in guest actors, like hearing the same voices over and over again, I think make it really hard to get real into it, and it's a struggle for me. But in the right mindset and with enough time, maybe having gone by since the last time you did it, maybe it's worth taking a look at. I guess if you're a real completionist. But I did it, and I survived it, and now I'm on to better things. So that's kind of where that stands. But that's in here too. If you find yourself, stumbling into this document through Twitter, you can see this stuff.
But just remember, it's on a curve.
It's on a curve. Yesteryear would not stack in here with these guys. As good as I think yesteryear kind of actually is, it doesn't fit with Metamorphosis and Tomorrow's Yesterday for me. It's somewhere down here kind of range. Yeah. Anything else we haven't touched on with this stuff? I guess one other thing, I usually put this out on Twitter as well. This is on here too. This is my ranks by season, next to yours, next to Jim's, next to the Twitter polls that I ran, and then there's a combined average as well, with all those numbers kind of averaged against each other. And I have that by season, but I don't have it by show yet, which I'm going to do. I want to see how like the overall show ranks compare outside of just the individual seasons. Now that all three of us, or the two of us, and then Jim and the polls can all be kind of put next to each other. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there anything in here that looks weird? You and I are high on the empath is a takeaway. Like, I have it at 9 season 3. You have it at 6. Jim has it at 22 and 77 overall, and Twitter poll has it at 16 for the season.
That's like a quintessential, to me, like a quintessential Big 3 episode where they're all together, and McCoy sacrifices himself to that stuff.
Yeah, it's I think that one suffers from the heft of it. Like, it's not pleasant. To me, I have a harder time. That and Plato's Stepchildren kind of are partners in a sense, because they're both kind of miserable experiences, and put the characters through real hell.
Yeah, and it's like a superior being doing things. Yeah, I get that. I definitely get that correlation.
But I think the empath doesn't have the same. Plato's Stepchildren puts the characters in such humiliating and kind of ridiculous situations that it's almost impossible to just get beyond that to me. Like, I really struggle with just getting through some of those scenes where the empath is dark and kind of sadistic, but it's, I don't know, a lot of it takes place off screen too. Like, it's not, you know what's happening to them, and you know what these guys are doing to Kirk and McCoy in those various scenes. But I think, like you said, the way that it features the Big 3, and it really puts McCoy in a position at the end to be sacrificial and stand up for his friends and That's another one I didn't mention earlier with kind of a hallmark of season 3 being that it gives McCoy things to do and Scotty things to do. That's another one. The empath gives McCoy like a lot of big dramatic things to do, and I think that's a big deal to me. I think that makes it a really strong episode.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. So I kind of cut away from the spreadsheet and just back to the normal view here. Any last thoughts? Coming up on an hour here for the original series as a whole.
I don't think so. I'm excited to finish the movies. I have one more TOS movie to finish. I think Bill's finished with those.
I am.
I think we'll definitely discuss that next episode, probably. But yeah, I really enjoyed TOS. It was this time around. It was just watching the show, which is from a whole completely different perspective almost with this rankings things, and I'm excited to see how that perspective changes other shows. But I think it's going to make for some very interesting conversations because I think with TOS you definitely get a good variety of that middle ground of where you're going to see people's preferences come out. I think that's just going to be amplified once we get to a bigger show where there's more variety. There will be higher highs and lower lows, definitely, but I think that middle ground is going to be definitely some really good conversation because there's just more episodes and more variety. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I think TOS was just I think it's a good like jumping off point because it is, at least for rankings for the first time, because it is a lower episode count, and I think you're able to be able to get your footing and get your feet wet if you're like thinking, I want to jump into rankings, I want to do this, I want to do that. I think not biting off more than you can chew. I think your first round, I think, is the way to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think TOS is an easy show to try that with because of the less number of episodes. The other thing TOS has is each episode is so unique to itself. Like they're easy to differentiate. The titles are obvious.
Yeah.
The stories are distinctive. They don't run together. I think it's pretty easy to pull out episode names once you've seen the show a couple times and know what's what. And that makes it easier than some of the other shows for sure. So yeah, I hope more people give it a shot. I do think I've mentioned this a lot over the years. I don't do it. I do it for a lot of reasons, but I think it does force me to look at the episodes fresh each time because I'm trying to do something, from a blank piece of paper each time I go through the show, and it adds a little extra something to the experience of going through the show, and gives each rewatch a fresh angle and keeps it from becoming white noise to me. So I recommend it if.
Yeah, and if you're kind of hesitant to put it out to the masses and the ethers of Twitter, I think Discord is a good spot because I think for me, it's always like having Bill to be able to send my ranks first, to be able to like, all right, is there any duplicates? Did I spell everything correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Have him, and I think we could do that in the Discord server because there is a rankings channel if you want to check that out. A lot of rankings in there, good stuff. But yeah, just having someone else to kind of bounce your rankings off and kind of discuss it. So
yeah,
it's always good time.
For sure. Yep. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks, and we're going to touch on the TOS movies to kind of wrap this thing up with those characters completely as we get ready to jump into the next generation, which I'll be doing in a couple of weeks. I'm going on vacation this week, and we'll be back in time for our next Trek Live episode on, what would that be, December something? I don't know, December 7th or something, 6th, whatever 2 Sundays from now is. We'll do the TOS movies then.
December 11th.
December 11th. Okay. We'll do the TOS movies then, and then we'll be into TNG, I'm sure, by then as well. So we'll touch on that.
Oh yeah.
But I'm really interested to talk about the TOS movies. We haven't done a lot of them over the years. We've each movie maybe individually here and there. I know we've done the motion picture as a single thing. We've done I want to say we've done something with the final. I think way back, like in our first year of doing this, we did the Final Frontier and Nemesis maybe as like a comparison thing. But I'm really excited to talk about the 6 movies as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 collective of kind of like.
Yeah, because we've done like stuff with TNG movies,
Mhm.
all the movies. I think it's going to be really fun to put those under the microscope and see how they stack up.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it almost is sort of the pseudo last season of the show. I mean, it's like Turnabout Intruders, the finale of the series, but you know, the characters definitely have a lot more to do in the.
I also think it helped bring back Trek on TV.
No doubt.
So I think there's a really good conversation
Yes.
coming for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, it should be fun. Okay, so we'll be back in a couple of weeks, and in the meantime, if you want to keep the conversation going, Twitter is always a good place for as long as Twitter's around and okay place to hang out. If you're looking for an alternative to that, we do have a Trek Live Discord server that we can get you on board for. If you're interested, if you're a Discord user but looking for a home, looking for a server to hang out at, you can send me a DM on Twitter at TrekFan4387. I'll get you an invitation. Like we've mentioned a couple times here, we have channels for rankings, and we have a watch log to kind of throw up there what you're watching and see if people have thoughts. There's channels for literature, Star Trek books, Star Trek games, as well as the currently running stuff if you're looking for a place to talk about that too. We also have a Trek After Dark hangout coming up pretty soon here after the first of the year, January 7th, I want to say it is, Saturday night, where we have a casual hangout. We'll maybe watch episodes. We've played games before, but most of the time it's really just us talking about life, talking about Star Trek, talking about what we think about what's going on in the world of Trek. So if you're looking to maybe that sounds like a good time, you can get on board just by shooting me a DM, and I'll get you an invitation right away.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It should be really fun. All the stuff we got going on coming up.
Great. Thanks, everybody. I see Ian in the chat and Jeff in the chat as well, kind of popping in here at the end. Appreciate you guys stopping by, and we'll be in touch.
Great. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys next week.
Take care.